Hello class, this is Professor Creek. In this video I'll be showing some tips and tricks for making decisions in the very last round of the simulation. So what I'm going to do is basically walk you through first my previous round and then my decisions for the final round. So in the left, if you go to Reports and Industry Reports, you can pull up all of your prior year's capstone couriers. And right now I'm through 7 rounds. So basically what I've done is made a company that's fairly average. So right now, some students have higher scores than this company, and of course some have lower as well. So here's my stock. You'll see I'm pretty much middle of the road in terms of stock. My return on sales is perhaps a bit above average. Return on assets a bit above average. If you look down at profits, I'm probably on the lower side of profits. But this is a good place to kind of maximize the benefits of the last round. And if you recall in your homework, and there was a question that asked, are labor negotiations worth it in the very last round? And whenever you get to your last round, you'll notice that there is an option for labor negotiation. And the answer to that question was yes, it's worth it. And that's another thing I want to show in this video. So I'm going to back up and show you something from my round 5, which was the last labor negotiation. So my strategy for this company was to focus on the low-end segment and the traditional segment. So that's what I've done. You'll notice that all of my products are now either traditional or low. And again, remember, this is round 5. So if we go down to human resources, notice something here at the very bottom, strike days. My company had no strike days. All the other companies had 36 days of strike. So essentially, I had 5 extra months to sell products, right? 1 month times 5. Now let's go see if I was able to capitalize on that. So in the traditional segment, you'll see the actual and potential market share was about the same. So I did well capitalizing in the traditional segment. But look at the low-end segment. Here's what I actually sold, and here's what I could have sold. And the reason that I didn't was because I didn't account for those strike days, and therefore I could have sold way more product than I thought was able. So my goal for the final round is to be able to hopefully force another strike and this time capitalize on it. So let's go make some decisions here. Launch web spreadsheet. Okay, so here we go. There is a labor negotiation this round. So I'm just going to start with the labor negotiations. So I go to Decisions and Human Resources. And let me pull up my capstone courier and go down to Human Resources. So let's take a look at what the wages are now. My wages are already almost $3 higher than all of my competition. And the reason that is because in round 5, as you just saw, I offered more in wages than my competitors. and the strategy I used for that was 10% more than what the labor force was asking for. So I'm going to do that again this round and hope that I get some more strike days, and essentially I'll be even higher this time, because this time I'm starting with almost $3 increase before I even offer them more money. So the strategy that I'm going to use here is to take the labor demands, which is $40.49, and increase them even higher by 10%. So I'm going to multiply by 1.1, 44.539. So I'm going to offer them $44.54. And then the other demands I'm just going to meet, which is the same as I did in round 5. And I'm going to be hoping for, at minimum, the same number of strike days as round 5. And it's possible I may get even more. So let's hit recalculate there, and then move on to the other decisions. In the R&D decisions, this is another area where it's probably going to be a little different in the final round than your previous rounds. So if you look at my perceptual map, you'll see that my products probably aren't positioned in the ideal places. So if you recall from the book, anywhere outside of this circle means that the product is not in an ideal place. And if it's outside of the dashed circle, then probably you won't even be able to sell that product because your customers are not interested. And you'll see that acre in particular for me is very close to that dotted line. But remember that that's at the end of this year. So with that in mind, I'm not going to make any changes for the last round. And there's a couple of reasons behind this. One is because of the age of the product. For the low end, they want the age to be 2, but of course price is more important, so I'm not that worried. For the traditional segment, I can't remember, let's go take a look. Traditional segment, the most important thing is age, with an expectation of 2. So we've got that. For the low end, age is second most important, with an ideal age of 7. So right now the age is 5 and 4.9. So I'm not that worried about making a change for anything. And the second reason is because if I was to revise, it's going to take some amount of months to even change my product, and by then the simulation will be over. So I don't want to waste money here. You know, if your company is in different segments, you know, some of the higher end performance segments, perhaps your decisions would be different. So moving on to marketing. I'm not going to change my promo or sales budget. My strategy has been basically to offer a little more than my competitors for each of those, and I'm just going to continue doing that in the final round. Let's go back to the courier and take a look at my prices compared to my competitors. So I notice two things that probably need to change here. One is for acre. My price is $18.50, and if I look at my competitors' low-end segments, here's $19.19, here's $17.50, here's a $20, $19, $17.50. But notice that acre is not that great of a performance and not that good of a size either. So in order to make up for that, I'm going to reduce the price. So I'm going to change that to $17.50, and if you recall on the perceptual map, this lower price should make up for where it's positioned as well, or at least that's what I'm hoping. And similar for a gape, I'm going to lower that price by $1. And next, let's take a look at the forecasts. In this situation, because I'm counting on the strike, let's just ignore these forecasts for now and go right to production. So let's look at the capacities of my products. I have fairly low capacity in Atom and Agape. I have decent capacity in Able and Acre. So because of the strike that I'm hoping occurs, and it should occur because I'm paying top dollar to the employees, rather than worry about forecasting, I'm just going to max out every single one of my production plants. So I'm going to forget this forecast, and I'm just going to take this number times 2 for every single product. 2400, 1600, and 2040. And what this is going to do is obviously make me have to spend a lot in overtime, but I'm hoping because of all that extra product that I should be able to sell due to the strike, I'll be able to meet these numbers even though they're extraordinarily high. So let's save that and continue moving on. Oh, before I do, let me mention this. Capacity in the final round, you don't want to touch capacity or automation. Reason being is both of them take a year before they take effect. So you notice that my automation is fairly high, and that's another reason that the labor strike is so good for me, because I pay less to my workers than most of my competitors because I've tuned up these automation ratings so high. But again, I'm not going to tune them up any higher this round because they wouldn't take effect until the next year and the simulation will already be over. So those would be sunk costs for this simulation. Moving on to, well, let's skip finance. We'll go to that very last. TQM. You can add TQM in your last round if you want to. I've already added quite a bit. So you notice I have fairly high reduction in cost here. And if you click on here, it'll tell you that diminishing returns are reached at $4 million of any given initiative. And I've already spent $4 million in TQM, so I'm just not going to worry about it for this round and save some money. Again, your opinions may vary based on how much you've spent in any given sector there. So lastly is finances. And you'll notice over here is looking pretty nice. I have fairly high retained earnings. Kind of high long-term debt. My cash position, not so good. But let's go ahead and account for this negative cash position by issuing a bit more debt. So I can do part of that by current debt. and another part by long-term debt. So that should be enough. Let's recalculate that, and then we'll process around and see how we did. Update decisions. And then we're going to go forward one more round, and of course that'll be the end of the simulation. So back to the Capstone Courier. Now I have a round 8 result, and let's see what happened. So notice that my profits for the previous round are pretty good. Looks like 2 competitors beat me, but I beat 3 in terms of profits. Also, my returns are still quite high, which is nice. And look at my stock price, where I was second to last. Now I'm maybe in second, maybe in third in terms of my stock price. But most importantly, let's go down and see A, how I did in terms of my sales, and B, how I did in terms of forcing a strike. So look at the inventory for everyone. It's 0, 0, 0, 0 across the board, except in one of my segments, Able. I maxed out everything and actually wasn't able to sell all of this traditional segment. So I could have backed that off a bit more. I was being obviously overly optimistic there on how much strike I could force. And of course all my plants were utilized at 200% due to the overtime. So if we move down to HR, look at this, strike days. I forced 51 days of strike out of every single competitor, and that's why I was able to produce that much product and still sell it all, because I had almost 2 months per competitor to sell product when they couldn't produce any product. So again, what decisions you make may fluctuate based on your strategy and where you're at within the simulation and compared to your competitors. But hopefully this has helped a little bit in nailing down some of your last round decisions.